the co-founders of one of the companies we decided to invest back in summer 2017. So we're here with Goran Torvakar, who's a co-founder and CEO of Indorse, and with Avadut Kulkarni, who's the co-founder and CMO of Indorse as well. So Avadut is currently in Singapore, and Goran is in the UK, in London. So I'll give them a minute to introduce themselves. Please go ahead. Goran, please, could you introduce yourself?
Hey, thank you, Eddie, and thank you, Dennis. I'm Goran. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Indorse. I've been working in the blockchain space for more than 4 years now. I started writing smart contracts on the Ethereum blockchain even before the mainnet was out. So I've been writing smart contracts since the testnet itself. So I've been writing smart contracts. I've been involved in the community as well. So I was also the co-organizer of the Ethereum Singapore meetup back in the days. It was quite a small community at that time. Only a few people sitting around the bar, around a table. The community has grown manifold right now, and I'm quite happy at the way things are going.
Hello everyone, I'm Avadut, co-founder of Indorse. I've been in blockchain space a few months after Goran. Actually, Goran introduced me to the blockchain as an idea, and I was quite fascinated by it. So we did quite a few projects together, and on Indorse, we have been working on these projects for more than 3 years now.
Great. Thank you very much for that. So we want to know a bit more about Indorse itself, of course. So could you please, Goran, briefly introduce Indorse services and its business model as well? Thank you.
Sure. So Indorse is a coding assessment platform. Companies, be it small companies or large enterprise companies, they use Indorse in order to evaluate their software developers. This can be done during hiring the software developers or even when they are within your company. So at Indorse, we have a very unique take on coding assessments. We leverage the blockchain technology and a community of experts to actually perform coding evaluations. So we have a community of experts across various programming languages, be it Java, JavaScript, C#, Python, any of these major languages. And we actually incentivize these software developers, these experts, to conduct the coding assessments, to conduct coding evaluations. So just in the last month, the highest rewarded coding expert was getting more than $1,500 in a month, which is quite a big amount in several countries. And these coding assessments can be used for various purposes. So Avadut will elaborate more on that, where these assessments are being used.
Sure. So this coding assessment engine at its core, we mainly apply it to two different models. First is hackathons. So when companies want to hire at scale or innovate at scale, they use this hackathons to achieve that. And the core of it is the assessment engine. And the second application of it is the upskilling part. So when companies are training their developers internally, they actually want to see where in the industry they actually stand after the trainings. That's where the upskilling part is used.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Goran and Avadut. So what exactly, how do you get revenues for this company? Who are your end clients?
Yeah, so the main business model is we charge for every evaluation done on one of the candidates for the companies. So for example, in case of online hackathons, we charge them based on the number of submissions, the number of shortlisting that we do for these companies. And for the upskilling projects, we actually charge them based on the number of candidates going through these programs. So yeah, so Avadut has a few examples about which kind of companies use these kind of solutions and services.
Yep. So just to quickly give you a brief overview about the hackathons that we deploy. So there are two main types of hackathons. One is innovation hackathon and the other one is hiring hackathon. So to talk about innovation hackathon, so the enterprise companies which have an interesting business use case or a problem, and they want to crowdsource these solutions from small teams or startups, they mainly use this innovation hackathon. Recently, we carried out an innovation hackathon for Rolls-Royce. So Rolls-Royce had an interesting problem. They wanted to address the challenges in the engine maintenance process using blockchain technology. This engine maintenance process is quite cumbersome and involves a lot of stakeholders. So they wanted to get a single source of truth, and that's when they wanted to deploy that on the blockchain. They wanted to get these ideas from different startups around the region or the globe. So we worked with Rolls-Royce to create particular themes and challenges for these particular problems. We deployed it. We got more than 50 teams applying for these challenges. And once the team applied with the solution, we then deployed our coding assessment engine at the core and got top 15 teams out of that and handed over those 15 teams to Rolls-Royce to take it forward, out of which then they awarded 3 top teams and gave them the project. The second part is the hiring hackathon. So this is when companies want to hire a developer on a massive scale. The format is actually interesting. Again, we post 3 challenges that are relevant to the business, relevant to the company. And for the developers to participate in this challenge, they must participate in the hackathon. They must solve the challenge. So a recently successfully delivered hackathon was for Dell. They wanted to hire 20 developers in one go. So we deployed the challenges. We worked with Dell and received over 1,200 applications. For all these applications, we again used our assessment engine, picked up top 100 and then presented to Dell, out of which Dell then hired 20. So that was quite a successful hackathon.
Yeah, another example of upskilling is the OCBC Bank. So we are working with OCBC Bank in Singapore. It is one of the largest banks in the region. So along with a local university called Neon Polytechnic, we started this new program called Data School. So OCBC, they wanted to upskill and train up to 200 data scientists within their company. And they wanted to do this for their existing employees, not for the new employees. So how the model works is that the Polytechnic, Neon Polytechnic, they actually train the employees, they conduct the courses and everything. And as Indorse, we use the coding assessment engine in order to conduct the evaluations on the developers, on the candidates. So essentially, by the time a candidate comes out of the program, we know that the candidate has learned something, and the candidate also is up to the task with respect to the industry, because the evaluations are done by industry experts, and hence you can safely say or safely assume that this person can actually perform on the job after finishing the course. Hence, it's a great combination of pedantic knowledge, learning from university, and also being judged by the industry experts.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Gaurang and Avadut. So these are great clients. I mean, we've heard about Rolls-Royce, Dell, and OCBC, which is a very large bank, very well known in Singapore. So it's could be quite interesting here just for me to briefly state your different funding rounds. So I've known Gaurang for a few years. We've known each other even before Gaurang co-founded Indorse, and because, as he was saying, he was part of the Ethereum community and he was working on smart contracts in Singapore, along with someone else I knew from Singapore as well, called David Moskowitz. And when we invested in the summer of 2017, and we invested over about $450 50,000 Singapore dollars in tranches. Then Indorse did an ICO, which went well, and through which they raised, if I'm correct, about $9 million at the time. And then later on, basically last year, Brand Capital, which is the strategic investment arm of India's largest media house called the Times Group, they decided they wanted to invest up to $6.5 million in Indorse, obviously at a higher valuation than when we came in pre-ICO time. So I think that gives a bit an idea to the viewers here where you at. Maybe you could tell us what have been your revenues until now, and what are your expectations for this year and later?
Yeah,
Sure.
definitely. So I will go ahead.
So in 2018, we actually started deploying this coding assessment in various applications, and 2019 was a very successful year for us. So in terms of revenue, last year alone, we received more than $1 million between upskilling and hackathons as models, and location-wise was mainly Singapore, India, and the UK.
Yeah, so last year actually I've been spending a lot of time in the UK, in London, to expand the business of Indorse in UK as well. We had a couple of really big potential clients in London. And yeah, so with the current situation, definitely the revenues. Our projections. So with the revenues, we definitely project some really nice revenues this year. But due to the uncertain climate, I think we can expect up to 2x or 3x increase in the revenues this year. Although earlier we were projecting up to 4 to 5x.
Okay, and is the what do you think about this current situation in terms of the COVID? Is that impacting at all on your activity, or on the contrary, maybe it's opening opportunities for Indorse? Maybe Gaurang, if you have an idea.
Yeah, so in a way, some of the business lines have actually been impacted definitely. So for example, upskilling, hiring especially has been impacted because very few companies are hiring anymore, right? But upskilling might actually have more impact. It might get more revenues this year. Also on the innovation side, so companies, while they're not hiring anymore, a lot of companies, they're still pursuing innovation within the companies. So that's one area. And I'll be talking about it later today, but we also will be launching another product quite soon, another solution quite soon, with regards to performance management and remote working. Because as you know, with this COVID situation, almost all of the companies in the world are currently working in a remote fashion. So I think that is a great opportunity for Indorse to capitalize on it.
Yes, and on point with this as we are now doing this webinar, and I know that Indorse has also managed a lot of webinars, especially in the human resource sector, talking about these topics. I think what is very important is that Indorse is actually solving a very critical element of remote work, which is to make sure that these developers have the necessary skills to actually perform the task that the client or the employer is giving them. I think that's very important. So this kind of trust that you create for developers' abilities is actually a very important one. I mean, we always feel, I would guess, face to face to trust people more, or at least to be able to supervise in a different way. So I think we all have now to work in this new environment where everything is happening at a distance, which is not that new for a lot of the distributed teams of the blockchain world. So maybe Gaurang, you can tell a bit more about that.
Sure. So see, Indorse, since we started the company about 3 years ago, we have always been a remote and distributed team. And that was more due to necessity rather than convenience, because at that time when we started the company, getting amazing blockchain developers was quite difficult. So we had to look outside Singapore to hire blockchain developers. So geographically, our team is located across 5 countries. So UK, Poland, India, Singapore, and Philippines. Yeah. So we have teammates across all these countries. So see, as a company itself, our culture, our DNA has always been working remotely. And in order to work remotely, trust has to be embedded in the system. Right? You cannot measure the quality of or the performance of anyone by the number of hours they are spending in the company or the number of hours they're spending in the office, because they might very well not be sitting in an office, right? They might be working from their home. Hence, how do you measure the performance? I think the trust is really important, and making sure that each and every one of us actually delivers on the KPIs, actually delivers on what has been promised, and takes the product forward, takes the company forward. That's the most important and critical element while working remotely, I think. So it's not just there have been some companies which are doing logging on computers, right? So they install some logging software on the computers of employees, and they actually monitor each and every of their activity, every website that the employee is visiting. I don't think that's a really good idea. You need to have trust in your teammates, and you need to trust that they're going to do the right thing. So yeah, these are my 2 cents. What do you think, Eddie?
Yes, so that's I think that's where Indorse brings a lot of value with this coding assessment skill platform, and then we'll talk later, as you were saying, about other tools that you're developing for this market. We've seen in the news very large companies like Facebook and Google announcing obviously that most of their work these days is done through remote working, and some of them asking their personnel actually to continue to work from home, and that's something that could last actually even for a few more months. So it seems that very large companies may not expect their employees and technical teams as well to not basically to not come back to the office for a while now. So that means it's definitely an opportunity for the employers to review their remote work and hiring practices. So maybe Abadut, you can say how you see this and how Indorse can fit in this new environment.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, as you said, if you look at the companies like Facebook and Google, they have extended the remote working settings in the organization for the entire of 2020. It was going to be until June earlier, but now it's till the complete end of the year. So people are now getting accustomed to remote working, the tools and the practices. Had it been 10 or 20 years ago, it would have been really, really challenging. But today, the technology has evolved to a stage where it is completely possible to get your work done remotely. Of course, it won't be possible in some sectors, but a lot of sectors it is possible. So as a result, companies would be looking at remote working as a new skill, essentially, right? So when they are hiring, they'll be looking at like how good your written communication is. How are you able to get the work done independently? Are you able to pick up the new tools? And that's something companies would be looking at, and we have been monitoring it very closely so as to make sure that we address those factors.
Okay, so these are the things you would recommend recruiters to focus on when hiring developers for remote working. Any other areas for them to look at when hiring remotely?
Definitely. So apart from checking the CV or the LinkedIn profile, also check if they have done some open source contribution. You can go to the GitHub profiles and see, okay, what projects they have done. So these are the kind of projects that developers do on their own. So that's a good signal for you before you hire developers or even before you start the interview process. Then ask them to do a small coding challenge and run them through Indorse to get the expert's opinion. I might be biased here, but we have deployed those processes and have worked well for us. We drink our own Kool-Aid in a way. and look for culture fit cues. For example, Automatic, the company behind WordPress. So they are a completely remote team, a huge team. And at work, they use only written communication. So they use Slack for written communication. So whenever they are hiring, they ask the developers to come on Slack, and the entire interview happens on Slack in written format. They do not have a video call or anything. So just whenever you, as a recruiter, whenever you are hiring or designing a process, make sure that it resembles to the actual working processes in your company. So that gives a good idea for the developers as well, that, okay, this is how it's going to look like.
Okay. So try to keep a sense of the usual, maybe company culture, and try to have bits and pieces replicated in the kind of virtual remote working environment. That's what you mean, right?
Yeah. So what happens is, as a recruiter, you are evaluating the candidate, but at the same time, candidate is evaluating you and the company as well. So you got to be mindful of that.
Yeah, agreed. So you were mentioning Slack. I mean, it's interesting because, of course, we are in a space which is around technology, blockchain technology, recruitment, where we know Slack, we know Zoom, but it seems that the whole world now knows these company names because, first of all, some people who were not working before in distributed way have to. And so the number of users of these platforms have really gone through the roof. But with more users, we also see some downfalls. So, for example, there have been critics around the security breaches at platforms like Zoom, and others. I mean, I'm just citing one of them, and I'm sure there can be security problems in other platforms. So what would you recommend, Gaurang, maybe to the new users of these conference call platforms, some tips to remain safe and do some successful conference calls?
Yeah, so Eddie, so if you look at it, Zoom is a tool at the end of the day, right? And it's up to us how efficiently and how effectively we can use the tool, right? So for all the admins of Zoom who are actually administering all these calls, the first and foremost thing I would tell is to go and actually understand how Zoom works, really understand the intricacies of Zoom. So go to the admin interface, look at all the functionalities, because usually what happens is a lot of functionalities are there, but maybe they are hidden inside the admin panel or something, and hence admins don't really use it. For example, there are some simple things that you can do on Zoom. Essentially, password protect your meetings. Don't let any random persons inside the meeting. You can also stop file sharing and all these things, so that people cannot upload malicious files on your calls or anything. So if you follow these simple best practices, I think Zoom calls can be pretty secure. Because see, frankly, over the years, we have used a lot of video calling softwares. Started with Skype, then you had Google Hangouts, and now Zoom. So Zoom definitely has one of the best audio and video qualities. So I would definitely recommend Zoom. But just make sure to follow all the best practices. Right? And Zoom has all these amazing backgrounds as well, as you can see on my background.
That's right. Great. Thank you, Gaurang, for this. I agree. I think it's always down to us as users and maybe conference call admins to find out what you should do with these tools. So let's look at it in a more, let's say, holistic way. So some people are used to work remotely. Some people are less used to work remotely. So I guess some people out there are quite worried about the impact of working at home in terms of home work-life balance. How do I manage with my family's kids, wife, or husband, etc. So I guess that's a question that comes to many people's mind. And again, here you have some experience because you have, as you were saying, Gaurang, you've been working with a distributed team for a long time. So how to manage this? How to minimize any risks on the life when working from home?
Yeah, so I always try to maintain and stress the fact that working remotely and working in a lockdown are two completely different things. Right? So normally when you're working remotely, you can still go outside the house, you can do whatever you want. You can go to movies, you can go to restaurants, bars, have a nice drink outside, or go down and have a coffee below your house, right? But when you're working in a lockdown, you can't really go outside your house in most of the countries, most of the cities. And that definitely takes a huge mental toll on you, definitely. And see, being entrepreneurs, being founders of a company, you end up completely, spending the whole of your day just on working, right? So when this lockdown started, since we didn't have anything much to do, we were working from 7 a.m. till 8 p.m., even 9 p.m. sometimes. So after a few days, I realized that no, I can't keep working 13, 14 hours a day every day. I need to have some, boundaries between my personal life and my work life. So what I started doing is I started going out for exercise every day. So I'm in London right now, and in London they allow you to go outside for exercise once a day. So I made sure that I go for exercise around 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the evening, so that I get definitely 10 12 hours of work every day. And then when I come back from my bike ride, from my running, I can start doing my personal stuff. I can spend time with my wife. I think that has worked really well for me. So essentially maintaining the separation between your work and your personal life. And yeah, Udut has some more amazing tips. He has been managing better than me, although in Singapore he doesn't go out for exercise, right, Udut?
Yeah. So a few things that have worked well for me is you should take regular breaks whenever you're working. So what happens is when you're at home, you end up working at a stretch of 4 to 5 hours, and it is not really good for you. Another thing, you should have a designated area just for work. So this area it's just my work area. I don't let my wife come around here. I just message her that okay, this is my work, and I just want to be focused. So
And
that
then she
that
puts those messages on Instagram. I don't know if
yeah,
you
one
see.
of the
Yeah.
webinars we were doing, Eddie. So I messaged her, okay, I'm gonna be on a video call. I appreciate that there is no noise and you don't come around here. So she made a story of it and put it on Instagram.
Yeah.
uh, and of and another important thing is, it could be the last one but not least, try to drink enough water. So when you're working like at a stretch or in a one sedentary position, you don't drink enough water. So do that.
Okay, great insights from your experience with all this cold and remote working. So um, let's go back to Indorse and how you really find these great experts helping you to assess the coding skills um, for your clients. So what do you think motivates the Indorse experts to join your platform? And as well, if some engineers or software developers are watching this webinar, what would you tell them if they wish to consider joining Indorse as an expert to validate other programmers? Goran.
Oh, that's a great question actually. So since we started Indorse, we have always had this community of experts who have been with us since the beginning. So the first 20 to 30 experts that joined the community, they're still there with us, and that's really heartening for us as founders. That's one of our great achievements, I would say, between me and Avadut, who have built that community and nurtured that community. So, as a software developer, it's more than just about earning money. It's also about giving back to the community, right? It's also about giving back to the new generation of software developers and helping them grow as a developer, helping them grow as an engineer. And that's, I think, one of the greatest motivations for the engineers joining our community. And obviously, the second part is the rewards that they receive for actually working on this. So you're not just helping other developers; you're also getting incentivized for doing that. So as I said earlier, just in the last month, the highest rewarded person was getting more than $1,500 in a month, and this amount is actually enough to pay rent in most of the countries or most of the cities. Not in London, definitely. or not in San Francisco, or not even in Singapore, but yeah, a lot of other cities. It's definitely more than enough to do that. So I think the combination of these two factors creates a like a magnet for the community and experts to keep joining Indorse.
How many experts are on the Indorse platform at the moment?
Yeah, we have about more than 400 experts on the platform. A lot of them have been, most of them are active. Some of them are active sometimes. Depends. It's completely voluntary. So whenever they want to do it, they do it. Whenever they don't want, they can not do it. So it's quite cool.
Great, great. I also wanted to quickly let the viewers, the attendees of this webinar know that we received some questions, and we'll soon move to the questions from the webinar audience. We just have a couple of questions before we move to them, so if they don't mind waiting a little bit for that. And what I wanted to discuss now is the fact that as we know, there are different ways to advance a career, and I guess most of us would feel more secure, I would say, when we have daily opportunities to talk to our boss or our team members, and to be, as I would say, visible maybe in the company. So obviously this is a different scenario when you are working remotely. So some engineers or some tech people may feel that their career may be not advancing as fast if they're working remotely. So what advice, Avadut, would you give them to keep their careers on track?
Definitely. So yeah, it becomes a bit more challenging, but the core of the things remain the same. So as a developer, you should keep learning and leveling up. That's a given, whether you're in the office or whether you're working remotely. Learning should not stop. Other than that, you should start contributing to open source or participate in the hackathons while staying productive at the job. Like contributions like this shouldn't come at the expense of the productivity at work. In terms of soft skills, actually, you should improve your written communication. It is going to be very crucial as we move ahead, as most of the communication in asynchronous teams, remotely working teams happen in written mediums. So that is very important. And keep improving your performance and productivity, and make sure you keep tracking those things. So you should be able to figure out ways to make sure that you are tracking those things, because what gets managed at the end of the day. So those are a few important things.
Okay, so I that transitions well into new services that Indorse may be launching as well, which I will ask Gaurang. I also want to ask Gaurang, where do you see the growth in Indorse revenues coming in from 2020 in terms of services? And are you planning as well to launch Indorse services in other parts of the world? So basically getting this Fortune 500 clients maybe from other areas of the world at this stage. So please let us know.
Sure. So yeah, since we started Indorse, we have been focusing on the hiring component of the value chain, and also upskilling recently. Now, as a company, as a team, we want to down the value chain and also look at performance management. So essentially, not just hiring developers, but also managing their performance. And hence, we will be launching a new feature, a new solution called Metamorph. So, if you know, metamorphosis is the process of turning from a larva to a butterfly. And hence, we feel that by using Metamorph, companies can transform their engineering teams into high-performing, high-growth engineering teams. And that's why we are launching this new product. It's very aspirational, I would say, the name itself. Metamorph.
Mm-hmm.
So you're converting your team into a very high growth team. We'll be launching it quite soon, towards the end of this month, I would say. And using this tool, we'll be able to target the small and medium businesses as well. So not just the enterprise clients, but the SMEs too. So that opens up a large section of market for us, because as you know, enterprise sales cycles are quite long, and all the clients that we have had over the last year or so, each of these deals has been quite big, quite huge. But with Metamorph, we are looking at products, we are looking at deals, which will be slightly much smaller in size, but it will have a huge volume there. So yeah, that's what we'll be doing. I think Eddie has frozen now. There's an internet problem.
No, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay.
Just had to turn off the video a few seconds. Yes, I'm here. So thank you, Gorang, for this explanation. Yeah, Metamorph makes sense. Great. So we can move now to the questions that have been sent by the participants of this webinar. So I think some questions are addressed to Coinsilium, so I will answer them quickly. One of them says, what percentage of Indorse does Coinsilium hold? This is a public information. It's 10%. So we obviously announce this when we talk about Indorse or in our annual audited accounts. Other questions that have come in are around the competition. So for example, someone is asking, are there any other companies that do what Indorse is doing? Maybe one of you can answer this.
Sure, I can take that up. So yeah, there are a few other companies which are trying to solve the same problem in terms of hiring. So there are companies like HackerRank, Codility, and several other companies in Europe as well who are trying to do something similar. But the way in which we do it, the innovation of using a community of experts to actually evaluate the software developers, that's very unique about Indorse. And I think that's where the sticky factor of Indorse lies, right? So when we get a client, when we onboard a client, they actually love using the solution because they get evaluations, they get comments from real life experts, as opposed to some AI tool which is answering based on some templated responses or formatted responses. In this case, you're getting real humans to actually evaluate your candidates, and I think that's what people love about Indorse.
Great. So the same person is asking how big is the team, so in terms of members, and in terms of growth plans, probably are you expecting to grow your team and add more members to the team?
Yeah, so right now we have about 17 full-time teammates, and a couple of them are part-time, and plus a consultant from the HR space who helps us on and off for the new product. In terms of growth, no. So we are launching this new product with the current team. In the next year or so, we might be hiring more people, not immediately. Plus, right now we are being cautious. We are trying to bootstrap ourselves and save some money, tighten the belt, and trying to minimize the costs as much as possible. Yeah.
So one company that has been tracking that tracks basically startups all over the world considers Indorse in a new term that they call minicorn or potential unicorn. That means that eventually you could get there, which is kind of a, I guess the holy grail for a lot of startups, tech startups especially, reaching $1 billion company valuation. What do you think about that? Do you think that is a possibility, and basically how, what is the background of this?
Oh yeah, definitely. So actually, this is like a running joke within Indorse. So my WhatsApp status has always been, becoming a unicorn. So as founders, we are very aspirational. We definitely see when we started the company, we always aimed really high. And when we met you, Eddie, for the first time, that was what we discussed. We always wanted to be a unicorn, and this was one of the jokes that David always cracked. So in one of my first interviews as a founder of a startup, instead of actually saying that I want our company to be a unicorn, I ended up saying that I want to be a unicorn. These guys, they went back and they actually created a unicorn photo with me as a unicorn. It's quite funny.
Yeah, it's still on his desk.
Yeah. That has been one of the running jokes. Anyway, so in terms of that particular article by Traction, so I think minicon is one of the terms that they, I think, is made up, and yeah, we are actually really happy to be in that list. So I hope we can stand up to the expectations.
Okay, so we let me see a different question. Somebody said that there was a mention of Indorse launching an offering for remote workers. I guess we talked about this, because basically what you do is easily workable for all remote workers now, and obviously this is as well the focus of the Metamorph service. So I'm not sure we need to add anything about this, unless you may want to.
Yeah, I think Avadhoot might want to add something about that. He feels very strongly about the new product and remote working, right, Avadhoot?
Yeah,
Okay.
quite excited about it. Solves the specific problems that a lot of companies are facing. And we have been doing some user interviews about the product, and everyone likes the idea. We even got some initial interest from those interviews. So I'm really excited and looking forward to launching it soon.
Great, good news. So we, as a platform assessing skills, basically, we have been mostly focused on, and you have been mostly focused on tech and coders, programmers until now. Someone is asking, are there any other markets which Indorse could provide assessment and validation solutions for? So maybe one of you could tell us if you've thought about this.
Yeah, we have always been exploring that, and that has always seemed like the next frontier. But just within the coding space, just the technology space itself, we have been fortunate enough to get a lot of clients who want to use it for hiring developers or evaluating developers. And also with the next product, Metamorph, I think it's about the developers. So, whenever we have approached actually building new products, we always try to get the low-hanging fruit, which was software developers for us, because we are developers. I do by training, and hence we know the market best. We know the market really well about developers. We know how developers think. We know what people want out of developers. So I think that's the first market. Definitely, we are looking at other markets, other areas like maybe marketing or artists,
Designers, yeah.
designers as well. Yeah, I think we might do that next year once we have these products mature, right away.
Yeah.
Okay, great. If anyone else, there is one other question here that has been asked by the participants, but if anyone else wants to ask a question, I think that's the right time. For now, it seems that we may just go into the last words after this question. So someone is asking about the employment laws around hiring distributed remote workforce. So I don't know if you have any insights around this, or any tips or anything you could tell this person.
Yeah, as lawyers always say, we don't consider this as legal advice. But yeah, I think it all depends on the jurisdiction in which you're hiring. So yeah, it depends on where you're hiring the person. Can't say much anything beyond that.
Yeah, actually, you should get professional advice for that.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, so this is not something that you encounter on a regular basis. Obviously, you're more into the technical aspect of these solutions. So that was the last question I received. We received from the attendees. I mean, just to maybe summarize it a little bit, we've been talking about, your path until now, the fact that you're now expanding into the UK market. You explained a bit about the hackathons and for large clients like Royce and Dell, Upskilling for OCBC Bank. Talk about the revenues and how people should look at remote working practices, and the fact that very large companies as well are, basically asking their personnel to continue working from home. So I think there is a sense that companies like Indorse, with this kind of activities where experts around the world can actually assess other programmers' skills, could become a trend and be more and more used, I would say, by more and more companies. So maybe I let you, Gaurang and Avadut, conclude and maybe give us a taste of what you think is coming in the work environment of 2020 and beyond.
Yeah, so I've been hearing and I've been reading a lot of conflicting opinions by people. Right? So some people think that remote working is here to stay, while some people think that the world will again go back to normal. But I don't believe in extremities as a person. I think we might reach a middle point in between these two situations, right? So a lot of companies, while they will not go completely remote immediately after the lockdown ends, they might actually have a flexible working policy, at least most of them. And I think a major shift that's going to happen in the professional environment is earlier people didn't believe in remote work. Some of the managers who have been schooled in the earlier days, some of the older generation, they didn't actually believe in remote work. They didn't believe in letting people work from home or not being there and not being managing them day to day. I think that mentality is going to change. Now people are actually realizing that remote working also works. And I think that's going to be a huge fundamental shift in the professional workspace. Yeah, you want to add anything to this?
No, I think flexible is the right word that you used, because it's going to be flexible. They can't force people to come to the office, or they can't force people to work from home. So they will leave it to the people, the employees, and that will be the flexible working policy would be the new normal, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think that the current situation made a lot of, as you were saying, Gaurang, the current situation makes a lot of people either manage people working remotely or, of course, work remotely for clients or for their employers. And as you said, if it works, as it obviously does, at various degrees, but obviously works for millions of people these days, that's the best way for people to know about the new way of working and making sure that they may see the benefits at this moment and then continue to use it. Thank you very much, Gaurang and Avadut. I think you gave everyone a good overview of what Indorse is about, and just tell people that you can find out more about Indorse on the indorse.io website. Coinsilium itself at coinsilium.com. We often make announcements or publish newsletters which talk about our portfolio companies, such as Indorse. So you're welcome to subscribe to our newsletters and follow us. And of course, follow as well the Indorse website and social media accounts. Thank you very much for joining us, and hope to see you participate to future webinars hosted by Barbarian investors and sponsored by Coinsilium. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you, Denise, for your help. Did you want to say anything before you close, or is okay?
Well, I mean, just to quickly say, amazing stuff from Indorse. You know that personally, I also have a lot of faith in the innovation and the solutions that you're building. But most of all, what I really love about the business is the values you guys have ingrained into the company and the startup. So really interesting. Thank you so much for those insights. They're very relatable also when you explain them in person. So I really enjoyed it very much. And just to echo Eddie and say, hope to have more people join our regular webinars on different topics. Thank you for joining this one. And thank you guys for participating. Good luck. Next time we speak, hope you're a unicorn. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for your help. Bye. Bye, Gaurang. Bye, Avadut.